So we're getting close to the end of the book of Numbers. And in this chapter here, we're going to see the historic journey that the Israelites have been on and the different places that they have been on this journey. Numbers 33:1. These are the stages of the journeys of the Israelites by which they went out of the land of Egypt by their hosts under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. 33:2. Moses recorded their staying places as the Lord commanded, stage by stage, and these are their journeying stages from their starting places. So apparently this whole time Moses has been writing things down. He has been keeping a log of their journey. So we're going to see that log now. Numbers 33:3. They set out from Ramses on the 15th day of the first month. On the day after the Passover, the Israelites went out of Egypt with a high hand and triumphantly in the sight of all the Egyptians. The Israelites came down to Egypt because there was a famine in the land, and they have been down there for hundreds of years at this point. And they were treated poorly by the Egyptians. And Moses, he killed a man and he was on the run. And he encountered a bush that was on fire, but it was not being consumed by the fire. And that is when he encountered the Lord. And then the Lord set him to free the Israelites, to bring them out of Egypt and bring them into the land of Canaan. So Moses, under the direction of the Lord, went back to Egypt, performed a number of miracles, and led the people out. And that's where this log here is beginning. And you can see more of that story in the book of Exodus. It's pretty close to the start where these events transpire here. Numbers 33:4. While the Egyptians were burying all their firstborn, whom the Lord had struck down among them, upon their gods also the Lord executed judgments. God performed a series of miracles in Egypt, and the final one was the Passover event, when the angel of the Lord flew over Egypt and slew all the firstborn. And when these people were grieving over the loss of their firstborn child, that's when the Israelites made their escape. Of course, the Israelites didn't lose their firstborns. They painted the blood on the walls, and that was kind of a marker, and then the angel of the Lord didn't destroy them, so they were safe. And that's when the Israelites went on the run. Numbers 33:5. The Israelites set out from Ramses and encamped in Succoth. So the Israelites left Ramses. Now, Ramses is a city named after a pharaoh. It may not have been that particular pharaoh, the pharaoh that is in power during the time of the Exodus. It's not really mentioned, so there is some speculation on which pharaoh that would be. Either way, they left this location in Egypt and now they are in Succoth, also pronounced Sukkot. They are pitching their tents, they are staying there temporarily, they're on the move. As far as Sukkot goes, there's multiple locations that bear that name. One of them is in Scotland, but I don't think that's where they were. Another one is believed to be in Egypt near the Eastern Delta, and that's probably where they were. There's another one that's in the Jordan River area, but they won't be to that location for quite some time. So presumably they're still in what would be Egypt, and they're on the run, and it's just kind of their first stop on the way out type of thing. Numbers 33:6. And they departed from Succoth and encamped in Etham, which is at the edge of the wilderness. So Etham is on the eastern border of Egypt and is on the edge of the Sinai Peninsula. Should mention as well that it is a very large group of people. They can't go to a city and camp at that city, that they have to camp out in the countryside in all these different places. Numbers 33:7. And they set out from Etham and turned back to Pi-hahiroth, east of Baal Zephon, and they encamped before Migdol. They went really far in one direction, and they came towards the wilderness. So they went too far, so they doubled back. They went back the way they came, and they camped at this region of Migdol, and to the west of them was this other landmark here, Baal Zephon. We saw this part during the Exodus. It was right before they crossed the Red Sea, and Pharaoh and his army were approaching them on the one side. Numbers 33:8. And they journeyed from Pi-hahiroth and passed through the midst of the Red Sea into the wilderness. And they went a 3 days' journey in the wilderness of Etham and encamped at Marah. So this is where Moses parted the Red Sea so that the Israelites were able to cross the sea as Pharaoh's army chased after them. And then the sea closed up after they were across, and it destroyed Pharaoh's army. And they went into the wilderness again, because that's what was there on the other side of the sea. Numbers 33:9. And they journeyed from Marah and came to Elim. At Elim they were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there. So Israel has crossed the Red Sea, and this was a traumatic and exciting event with a lot of stuff going on. And now it's time to relax a little bit. So they're camping here where there's a source of water, there's some nice palm trees. They're taking a little bit of a break before they enter back into the wilderness to continue the journey. Numbers 33:10. They set out from Elim and encamped by the Red Sea. 33:11. They journeyed from the Red Sea and encamped in the wilderness of Sin. It's hard to say exactly how the Israelites were traveling here, but they crossed the Red Sea. They're camping out at a location that had a good source of water, and I wonder if they were traveling up or down the river on the coast before moving inward, more inland, into this wilderness of Sin. Or if this is simply a statement remarking that they're leaving the region of the Red Sea and the perimeter of it, and these other areas are part of that region as well. So either way. Numbers 33:12. And they traveled on from the wilderness of Sin and encamped at Dophkah. 33:13. And they departed from Dophkah and encamped at Alash. So they're continuing on in their journey. They're making their way through this wilderness on their travels. Can't really think of anything remarkable transpiring in these places, but it was just stepping stones along the journey. Numbers 33:14. And they set out from Alash and encamped at Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. This here was a significant event. There was no water in this location, and the Israelites were murmuring and whining and complaining. Did you bring us out of Egypt so we could die? And this is the event where Moses, by the commandment of the Lord, smotes the rock with his rod, and it brings forth water for the people to drink. This is a symbol for later on when Jesus comes and is crucified and killed and bringing forth the living water to rebuild the relationship with the Lord. A pretty cool event and a prophecy here in the Old Testament of the future. Numbers 33:15. And they departed from Rephidim and encamped in the wilderness of Sinai. In the wilderness of Sinai there is a mountain, Mount Sinai, and that is the mountain that Moses climbs up, gets the 10 Commandments from the Lord, comes down, sees the people worshiping a golden calf. Many people die. He goes back up the mountain, gets another set of the 10 Commandments, brings it down, brings the law to the people. They start building the tabernacle. A whole lot of stuff happens here in this event, in this location. Numbers 33:16. And they journeyed from the wilderness of Sinai and encamped at Kibroth Hatava. So this location here that they're now camping, Kibroth Hatava, that name translates to the graves of craving or the graves of lust. Now, there was no good source of consistent food, so the Lord provided manna, which was like a flour from heaven. And the people were eating this manna. And they got tired of eating this manna. And they were complaining, they were grumbling. That's just something that we see all throughout the Exodus event and throughout Numbers as well. Throughout the journey out of Egypt, they're just constantly complaining. So anyway, they're complaining about the food and they want meat. So God swarms them with quails and the people eat them and they get sick and a whole bunch of people die. So it's quite the event. Numbers 33:17. And they traveled from Kibroth Hatava and encamped at Hazeroth. Hazeroth is where we see the rebellion of Aaron and Miriam, Moses' siblings. They thought they could be just like Moses, have the position of Moses. The Lord could use them in the same way. But it's up to the Lord who he wants to use and who he doesn't want to use. And they were murmuring against a brother, and God didn't like this. So he struck Miriam with leprosy, and she was expelled from the camp temporarily. He didn't do the same thing to Aaron because Aaron was the high priest, and, well, he wouldn't be able to do his job if he was ceremonially unclean, if he was stricken with leprosy. So that's just kind of an event that occurs here. A little bit of a slap on the wrist, but I'm sure it was very severe, being excluded from the camp until she could be cleansed to return. Numbers 33:18. And they journeyed from Hazeroth and encamped at Rifmah. It's either in this particular verse or one close to here is when the spies get sent out to the land of Canaan. And each tribe sends their own spies, so 12 spies go there. And of the spies, 2 of them say it's great, we should take it, it's awesome. And the other 10 say it's loaded with fortified cities and giant people and they don't stand a chance. And the people believe the 10 spies over the 2, and that's why we have the wilderness wandering. The Lord punishes them by making them wander in the wilderness for 40 years. And everybody that was over 20 years old dies in the wilderness, and they never get to enter the promised land. Numbers 33:19. And they departed from Rifmah and encamped at Rimon Perez. It's possible that this location here is where we see the Korha rebellion. A rebellion when there was a group of people that thought that they should be priests as well, despite it being a hereditary priesthood and God appointing the people that would be in this priesthood, Aaron and his sons. So they offered fire to the Lord rejected it and killed all of them. And there was also a plague that went out into the congregation, and many other people died as well as part of their rebellion, trying to usurp the priesthood. Numbers 33:20. And they departed from Rimon Perez and encamped at Libnah. So they camped at Libnah. Now, I don't know if anything particularly exciting happened here this time, but later on, Israel is going to conquer this land, and it's going to be quite important. But that's not for a couple books. Numbers 33:21. And they removed from Libnah and encamped at Risa. So this is one of the locations that Israel camped at, probably a desert-ish area. Its name is associated with dew or moisture, so maybe it was a location that had water that was out in the desert. Numbers 33:22. And they journeyed from Risa and encamped at Kehelatha. 33:23. And they went from Kehelatha and encamped at Mount Shapher. Now that we're in the wilderness wandering phase, they're camping all over the place. Mount Shapher, it's a pretty mountain, and they're camping near it. It's just kind of a landmark. But for the next couple, they're just all over the place in the wilderness. there's not a lot that happens in the wilderness wandering. It just kind of names different places, and you can look up the name meaning and perhaps maybe get some sort of insight in what the areas looked like from that. But it's really hard to tell where exactly these places are on a modern map, so let's get through this. This will take a lot less than 40 years for us to go through it, but it's still quite a few places. Numbers 33:24. And they remove from Mount Shapher and encamped at Harada. 33:25. And they set out from Harada and encamped at Makeloth. 33:26. And they removed from Makeloth and entered Tahath. 33:27. And they departed from Tahath and encamped at Terah. 33:28. And they removed from Terah and encamped at Mifkah. 33:29. And they sat out from Mifkah and encamped at Hashmonah. 33:30. And they traveled on from Hashmonah and encamped at Mosroth. 33:31. And they journeyed from Mosroth and pitched in Bene Jacan. 33:32. And they set out from Bene Jacan and encamped at Hor Hagidag. 33:33. And they set out from Hor Hagidag and encamped at Jotbathah. 33:34. And they journeyed from Jotbathah and encamped at Aberonah. 33:35. And they traveled on from Aberonah and encamped at Ezion-Geber. 33:36. And they removed from Ezion-Geber and encamped in the wilderness of Zin, which is Kadesh. So they've wandered around in the wilderness enough to go full circle, and they're back in the region of Kadesh. Now in Kadesh here we have the event known as the Waters of Contention. This is the event that the Israelites, they didn't have any water. Moses went to the Lord to ask him for water, and the Lord commanded Moses to go to this rock over here and ask this rock to provide water. Of course, Moses didn't obey the Lord and hit the rock with his stick, his walking stick or his stave, and it produced water for the people, but he misrepresented the Lord. He didn't do what the Lord asked. As a result, Moses is punished and he is not allowed to enter into the promised land. So after this huge long journey, he never gets to enter into it. And that kind of sucks. But he did misrepresent the Lord, so it is what it is. Numbers 33:37. And they removed from Kadesh and encamped at Mount Hor on the edge of Edom. In the region of Mount Hor, the people of Israel are complaining again, and this time the Lord sends serpents to punish them. These snakes, they bite people, they're venomous, and the people die, and it's quite a tragic event. They go to Moses, Moses goes to the Lord, and he is directed to make a bronze snake so that when people look at this bronze snake, they are healed. It's kind of a neat little scene, but this is where that event transpires. Numbers 33:38. Aaron the priest went up on Mount Hor at the command of the Lord and died there in the 40th year after the Israelites came out of Egypt, the first day of the 5th month. 33:39. Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor. Aaron is also being punished and is not able to enter into the promised land. So Eleazar, his son, and Moses, his brother, climb this mountain, and Aaron dies in this mountain, and they bury him in this mountain. The high priest position and the priestly vestments, the clothing of the high priest, are transferred to Eleazar, his son, so that when he returns to the camp, They continue to have a high priest, but now it is Eleazar the son, not Aaron the father. Numbers 33:40. The Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the south, the Negeb, in the land of Canaan, heard of the coming of the Israelites. So King Arad finds out about the Israelites coming. The Israelites are on their way towards the promised land, and he attacks the Israelites and he captures some of them. Then the Lord listens to the plea of the Israelites and grants them great military victory over King Arad, and they conquer his land and they're able to wipe them out. We see this event in Numbers 21. Numbers 33:41. They set out from Mount Hor and encamped at Zalmonah. So the Israelites are taking a bit of a scenic route towards the promised land. They tried to gain permission to travel through the lands of Edom, but they were denied, so they had to go around. So that's why we see so many locations here on the way to the land of Canaan. They also ran into a number of different enemies along the way, and they needed to be dispatched for them to move forward. And we're going to see some of those locations here in a second. Numbers 33:42. And they set out from Zalmonah and encamped at Punon. 33:43. And they set out from Punon and encamped at Oboth. 33:44. And they traveled on from Oboth and encamped at Ya'abarim on the border of Moab. The event that transpires here is another shortage of water, and the leaders of Israel, under the direction of Moses, dig a well to provide water to the people, and the people sing, and it's an exciting and glorious time. Numbers 33:45. And they departed from Eyam and encamped at Dibon Gad. So we are getting very close to where we were previously in the book of Numbers. We have mention of Dibon Gad, which is the city of Dibon made by the tribe of Gad. So this was part of the land that was provisioned for the tribe of Gad, and this was one of the cities that they made. So we know exactly where this is. This is the land that they conquered previously in the last couple of chapters, and then the tribe of Gad and Reuben, they negotiated to have this land for their possession. So that's where we are right now. They're on the other side of the Jordan River. They need to cross the Jordan, get across, and they'll be in the promised land. Numbers 33:46. And they set out from Dibon Gad and encamped at Elmon Dibalaphayim. 33:47. And they traveled on from Elmon Dibalaphayim and encamped in the mountains of Habarim before Nebo. So this location here, this Mount Nebo, which is part of the Abraham mountain range, is the one that Moses gets to climb and gets to see the promised land from the top before he passes away. Numbers 33:48. And they departed from the mountains of Habarim and encamped in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho. So a lot of this area is the Moab region, and these are different sections of it. And they're just kind of traveling around, making their way towards the promised land. Numbers 33:49. And they encamped by the Jordan from Beth Jizmoth as far as Aber Shittim in the plains of Moab. 33:50. And the Lord said to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho. So now they're at the door, the figurative door to entering into the land of Canaan, and the Lord is giving more instructions to Moses to give to the people, to prepare them for when they enter the land, for he's not going to be there to join them. Numbers 33:51. Tell the Israelites, when you have passed over the Jordan into the land of Canaan. 33:52. Then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you, and destroy all their figured stones and all their molten images, and completely demolish all their idolatrous high places. 33:53. And you shall take possession of the land and dwell in it, for to you I have given the land to possess it. So we see what the Israelites are commanded to do. They are to enter this land, and they are to drive out the natives that are there, to remove them all from this land, and to destroy all their idols, all their idolatry, their molten images, and these other altars and things that they have, to remove it all, to purge them from the land entirely, leave nothing behind. Numbers 33:54. You shall inherit the land by lot according to your families. To the large tribe you shall give a larger inheritance, and to the small tribe you shall give a smaller inheritance. Whatever the lot falls to any man, that shall be his. According to the tribes of your fathers you shall inherit. And now we have the description of how they are to inherit the land, how they are to divide it amongst themselves between the different tribes and the different people that are in each tribe. And it's divided out based on the biggest ones get the bigger portion and the smaller ones get the smaller portion. And it's to be divided out by lots. So they draw lots for each piece of land, and that's how they determine who gets what. So by some form, God is deciding who gets what, and he's looking after all this. You know, he's behind the scenes. He can decide who wins the lots, right? He could decide which face of a dice comes up, and that's essentially what we have here. Numbers 33:55. But if you will not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then those you let remain of them shall be as pricks in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall vex you in the land in which you dwell. In the event that they fail to drive out these people, and they do not destroy these idols, it's going to be incredibly painful and punishing. As we'll see down the road, they didn't exactly follow through with everything that the Lord said. And some of these people here, they show up time and time again to wreak havoc among the Israelites, to make their lives a lot more unpleasant than they need to be. Numbers 33:56. And as I thought to do to them, so will I do to you. The Lord was going to assist with removing these people from the land, and he was going to expel them out, make them slaves, and just give them a hard time to make it so that they would leave. But because they failed to eliminate these people, this is going to be the fate of the Israelites down the road, that they are going to suffer in the same way that these other people were to suffer. So that's very unpleasant and something for the Israelites to look forward to in future generations.